Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. In this session for next 30 to 40 minutes, we'll be discussing on XR and its evolution towards tomorrow. I would like to give a quick introduction since Nidhi has already spoken about us. Myself, Sindhu. I have 8+ years of experience in XR and mobile development. I'm currently playing a lead consultant at Thoughtworks. And I have today with me Neil, who is pairing on the talk. Neil?
Hello, am I audible? Cool. So to talk about myself, I'm Neil. I've been with Thoughtworks almost 6 years now, and as Nidhi said, I've worked a lot on XR. And today's talk essentially talks about how XR has been and how it might be in the near future. So before we get into that, I'd like to ask you all, is everyone aware of what XR is? Can I get a raise of hands? How many people know? Okay, I see a few and a lot that are not raising their hands. So let me get right into it. So XR is short for extended reality, and it's kind of the technology that merges the real world with the digital content, right? And the main advantage of this is that you get much more immersive kind of experiences where you can leverage both what is there in the real world and the digital content. Some of the other technologies or the terms that you'll normally hear are augmented, virtual, and mixed realities. These are nothing but different flavors of extended reality. And extended reality kind of acts as an umbrella term for it. And these aren't the only types of technologies that are covered when it comes to XR. Even things like data visualization and simulation are parts of XR. So with that, let's get into today's actual topic, that is, where is XR and where is it going? So let's start with where XR is at this current point in time, right? And there are multiple domains that XR is very much prevalent in. And from what we have experienced, some of the major domains that are there include gaming, entertainment, simulation, retail furnishing, and real estates. So why are these particular domains the ones that have XR in such high amounts? So to start off gaming and entertainment, what we have seen is that gaming and entertainment essentially was the roots from where XR as a technology evolved, right? All of the 3D development that was being already done with regards to gaming kind of evolved itself and went out of the screen and into the real world. And that is where we have gotten what we call XR, right? Now, the other part where it comes to entertainment, what we have seen is storytelling is kind of an art, right? And when it comes to XR, XR helps in blurring that line between the fiction that you're trying to sell and the real world that you're living in, thus making your experiences much more immersive, right? It also opens up new avenues when it comes to how you interact with your stories. As you'll see, more and more interactivity comes in. Even on Netflix and other videos and stuff, you'll see stories kind of evolve and you being able to contribute as to how the story is going to play. And that is where XR is kind of taking its little steps into. Another major point or domain where you'd see XR very much prevalent in is that of simulation and training. Now, the key factor when it comes to simulation is that simulation is always costly, right? Whether you need heavy equipment, whether you need to replicate high-risk situations, simulation is something that is always costly. Let's take, for example, a crash test, right? Or how your airbags on your car is deployed. That is something that you can showcase once, but once you showcase it, you can't showcase it again in a showroom, right? So XR can actually augment your current visuals and showcase how those things operate, giving users a much better feel of how it is. And even in this kind of scenario, what we have seen is that while working with certain clients, for example, when it comes to gaming, we are working with one of the fitness clients in North America. And what we've seen is just introducing some amount of gamification, some amount of XR elements into your regular gym routines, made it such that people are a lot more retained, right? People do come back. What normally happens in gyms you would see is that people come, they work out for a month or so, and then there is a huge amount of droppage. Just applying a bit of gamification, we saw that retention rates was heavily increased, right? Similarly, when it comes to training, a lot of the times you'd see that training is around manuals, around videos. These are things that are very much static. They don't really change or adapt depending on how a user or whoever the trainee is performing. That is where XR kind of steps in. Because XR is more about interactions, as you interact with the training itself, the training can adapt. Right. These are elements where even generative AI is stepping in and kind of contributing to build up scenarios. Because if you give the right prompts, it can build up scenarios that can really engage the trainees. Similarly, when it comes to retail and furnishing, a lot of the problem with retail and furnishing is that you don't know how the product is going to look like until it gets to you. Now with a lot of online transactions, you'd see that there is a certain amount of indecisiveness on how the product should be, right? One of the key things that XR achieves is visualization. If you can see how the product is in 3D, you know how it properly fits with you in your environment and stuff like that. And that's where XR also comes in, both in retail as well as furnishing, kind of visualizing the products. Similarly, when it comes to retail and virtual tours, you'd see that a lot of pre-construction projects kind of don't get sold off because people do not know how it's going to look, how the space is going to actually be. For a layman, reading through like a blueprint and understanding how the space is going to look like is always difficult. That is where XR is kind of stepping in and redefining how people experience such an environment, right? Now, these are different domains. Now, there is a trend that is coming up, and the major change that we are seeing over the last few years is that XR as a technology, although it has a lot of domain application, is something that is slowing down, mainly after the advent of Gen AI, right? And we have seen that investments are stagnating a bit. Now, this can be seen as stoppage, or this can also be seen as an opportunity, because AI and how generative AI is currently growing is also fueling a lot of XR applications and interactions. Where are they fueling? Right now, all the interactions that we have with most of the Gen AI platform are in the form of chatbots, right? Chat prompts and interactions via text. It's not very humanized. And that is where it's getting integrated with XR, where interactions with AI can become a lot more humanized. Instead of typing something down in a prompt, it can be someone talking to you, right? And really change up how experiences. These can very much change up like interactions and immersiveness with people. And that is how the market trends are. Although there is lower retention for XR, we are seeing that more and more investments are going into a mix of AI and XR. And what is leading to the adoption of XR as a technology overall? Some of the key factors that we have seen that affects are immersion and visualization. We have seen that a lot of applications and a lot of use cases that we work on, normally people go for XR-related solutioning only when the immersive factor comes in, right? Whether it's training, whether it's retail, whether it's products, right? Whether it's gamification or selling a story, even in things like a museum, right? A lot of people nowadays go to museums and look around. You'll see that there are certain booths where XR is getting introduced, whether it's overlaying more information or giving you audio hints on what the stuff you're looking at is. It's very much visualized and immersive. Another thing that comes up is accessibility. As you know, AR essentially helps in accessibility in the sense that even if you have certain impairments, for example, whether it's visual or auditory, XR can actually help you overcome those impairments. One of the key use cases we had worked on was a very simple one. If you look through a head-mounted device, what you can see is what the other person is talking. So if anyone has visual impairments, there was a use case that we built that would turn that text that they are saying, the speech that they're saying, into text and kind of visualize it, thus breaking that gap. Similarly, what we had worked on is recognizing hand gestures. If you're looking at someone doing hand signs, that can be converted into text, and that kind of breaks up the accessibility barrier. Similarly, there are collaboration aspects to it. Now, you might be at different places, right? And one of the use cases we had worked on is trying to bring mural boards into 3D. The interactivity we used to have prior to COVID, where people were side by side working on something, was something we wanted to turn into digital, and that's where collaboration comes in. Similarly, real-time data integration is another. Data is always harder to visualize, but once you put a visual element to it, visualize it in 3D, it becomes much more consumable. Now, apart from just the factors that lead to adoption, there are certain factors that hold XR back. And some of the key things that are holding it are on the sides of the physical hardware stuff, right? So when it comes to hardware limitations, you'd see that there are XR devices that we have. You can even find a lot of XR devices in the booth today, are all bulky devices, right? And there is always an arms race between how much performance can you pull out of a device and how streamlined can the device actually be, right? You have to balance out what you can visualize, what you can run on those devices with how ergonomic or useful these are. So that is one of those limitations in hardware. Similarly, it connects back to performance, because the lighter the device, the more ergonomic a device you try to build, the lesser the performance comes out of it. Even development cost, if you look at it. XR is not a technology or a skill that everyone might have, right? It's very different from your normal software development, as in you'd need to learn some amount of 3D, some amount of maths. So it's a skill set that is different, and even the tools are different from what you go for normal development, which makes it such that it's something that holds back how XR is getting developed. And finally, adoption. XR, although a tech that is there for some time now, is not always the first choice for certain use cases. What we have seen with different vendors is that they would prefer other technologies, more lightweight and more stable technologies over XR. And that's also something that's holding it back at the current moment. But this takes us into how XR is actually reshaping itself, right? And what we have seen is that as technologies get more refined, there are certain more use cases that are coming up. Use cases in healthcare, use cases in engineering, where that precision, where that interactivity and being very close collaboration and visualization is very much helpful, right? And that's where XR is more stepping into. And that brings us to how we at Thoughtworks essentially are trying to contribute to that change or reshaping of XR. And we are trying to contribute via a few different sections. One is that of standardization. When we first started with regards to XR, what we figured is that there aren't any standards set when it comes to development for XR. And one of the things that we started doing is writing about what we are essentially seeing, what we are essentially developing. And that brings us to community contributions. We have Medium article sections with more than 100, 150-ish articles, right? All about standardization and certain ways of development. Similarly, we had worked on innovation, which was mostly around how do you develop certain common use cases. One of the most common use cases that we had worked on is how do you bring 2D applications into the 3D. And we had worked on different patents that would generalize how the interactions as well as how visualization of these things work, right? And to get more deeper onto the different aspects of these use cases, I'll hand it over to Sindhu. Top green.
Okay.
This one.
This one. Okay. Okay. Neil has covered, as in through different ways, how we have developed projects through standardization, through innovation, and also the community contributions. Now, let me walk you through different examples that we have built on all these three different sectors. Now, let me begin with standardization. So, in XR, there is no standard way to do the testing or development. When we say agile, it is very like prominent in the normal application development, but when it comes to XR, it's all in the place. There is no proper standardization. So when we picked up working on XR, the difficulty that we faced is on the testing front. How do you test devices, essentially which one is wearing? If I am wearing the device, obviously the other person could not see what I am seeing, and how would we test such devices? So the biggest challenge was testing. And what Thoughtworks, what we did is we built a testing autonomous tool called Arium, which helps you test XR devices. So that is through standardization. The one tool that we have developed on the standardization front is a testing tool, and with that testing tool you could test any XR device that is there. So when I say XR, it is AR, VR and MR, all the three devices. Right. Now let's talk about innovation. Now when we talk about XR, what do you think of? You think of the VR headsets that you see in the malls where people play, right? Now let's talk about some innovation here. How you will make use of XR? So as a Thoughtworks, what we always believe is we are consultants in nature. We want to make best use of things. If it is a 2D application, we wanted to use it in a 2D way. We don't want 3D for that. If something can be shown beautifully, that is 3D. I want to utilize and show it more beautifully. So take the best out of two worlds, 2D and 3D. We can have multiple dimensions, and I'm not Dr. Strange here, but I'm taking 2D and 3D in this perspective. So we want to take the best of two worlds, and the biggest challenge that we got is mobile has the capability to run all the 2D applications. Now what if the device that I manufactured, the XR device, has to have all the 2D applications? That's wherein we developed a project which can actually put all your 2D applications in the 3D space. Essentially you can watch your YouTube, you can log in onto that YouTube with your own account, and you can browse as you browse on your phone or in the television. You can also install Teams, all the 2D applications. There is no margin as in which can work, which cannot work. So that is one of the innovation that we have done, and we have got the patent for our clients. So that is one example. Now on the community front, we had this Ukraine war going on last year, and we know that a lot of things did not work as expected. Now Eurovision is a fest that used to happen in Ukraine, but because of the war, it did not. And many of the students, obviously fest, there is always this excitement. And students wanted to do something on the fest, but because of the war, from Thoughtworks, what we thought, okay, let's do something using XR way. XR is all about being remote and being immersive in the world. So we thought, okay, let's build some product for the students. Let's make them like float around in the city and know about their own city. That's wherein you see an application that is built, which there's a bird that flies through the city, and kids get to know different locations of the city, and they get to know the importance of the city. Even after the fest is done, the kids are still playing that game, because that tells them about their own city, right? So these are few innovations, few community contributions as a Thoughtworks we have done. There are multiple projects that we have worked. Because of the time limit, we are not going deeper into that. I'm not showing them, but there are a lot. Right. So we have seen what is the role of Thoughtworks in reshaping XR. Now let's see what are the common attributes that reshape this XR. I'm going like 5 to 6 years ago, wherein we only have an assembly way of writing the code, where you need to interact with the XR devices. If I wanted to do image recognition, you need to learn OpenGL. You need to learn MATLAB, right? So that's where a technology challenge is there. Now once there is a Unity engine, there is a new engines coming in, the development became easier. That's wherein people started adapting all those technologies, right? So that is one factor. The advent of tools is one factor which reshaped XR. More people started developing. And you see PUBG game, Pokemon, all these games, that are all because of the tools. That is one example. Now, let's talk about the factors that are impacting the XR development. Right. Now, the first thing that I want to talk is about Gen AI, because obviously everybody is talking about AI. Now, how can XR can be impacted with this AI, right? So, XR is all about immersiveness. Now, give some memory and knowledge to that avatar or a model that is there, which is very immersive. I'll take one example, okay? I have only my grandmom at home, and she feels lonely most of the time because we are in remote locations, right? I want to make her feel lively, not to feel alone. I'll just build an application on XR with AI capability, which can talk to her every day in normal language. How cool that be, right? So that is one of the product. I'm just explaining the impact that AI can give on XR. Let's move on to the next thing, which is standardization on interoperability. Now I'm going to shift my gears here as a techie. If you want to develop any XR application, obviously all the big players in the market, they have their own OS. OS is not out. For example, if you want to develop Android, you have AOSP, Android open source programming, right? If you want to develop on Apple, obviously they have their own proprietary related things, but you can still develop, right? But developing an application on one device and porting it into another device is a big challenge in XR. Now, there are few things that are coming in the market like Android XR, Horizon OS opening the plethora to other parties as well to develop and innovate. So with that will create huge impact building the community. Everybody can start developing XR applications. Now consider we have millions of mobile applications. We'll have millions of XR applications. You can see everything visually. Obviously not a hologram kind of thing, but with the devices, with the phones, right? Now let's move towards hardware advancement. I'll just take one example so that it will be there in your mind, which is Meta glasses, right? XR is all bulky, loaded, but have you seen Meta glasses? Sleek, comfortable. That's a change in hardware. What internally it has is augmented reality, AR, and like what it does is essentially the same functionality as XR. But just with the design change, the adaptability that users are having is huge. Now that is an impact, right? With this in mind, let's go to the next slide. Right. We talked about the factors that are there in the market. Let's talk purely technical, purely on the development front, right? Okay. I'm sure you're already visualizing this slide. Let me tell how the XR is reshaping in the development front, right? Currently, there are multiple third-party sources, not just for XR. Say, if you want to give a text and if you want an image out of it, you could do. There is Stable Diffusion, there is Midjourney, there is ChatGPT, Playground AI. A lot of things are giving text to image. There are multiple third-party vendors also which can take an image input and convert it into a 3D model. Let's take a step here and talk something about like couple more minutes on 3D model. Take 2 years or just now, even if you want to develop a 3D model, it will take hours together to develop the 3D model. But given the advent of AI and the way that things are happening now, you could develop any 3D model in fraction of seconds. Now let's go through the screen and see the visuals. So this is a prompt that I gave to ChatGPT saying, give me a vampiric demon ship. And you see it has given me, you can copy the same text and maybe a different version, but you will get a vampiric demon ship, right? And then the same image was picked up from ChatGPT, and you could use any image generators, not just ChatGPT. Then the same image is given as an input to another third party. You could take any third party vendor. And once I gave the prompt that, hey, convert it into a 3D model, I got the 3D model out of it and see the spikes that is it, the clarity of the 3D model. It would take hours together for a UX developer to do that. Let's take a step further. Now I have a model, I want to make it dance. I want to make it fly. So this is a prompt where I gave, hey, you have to do a Bharatanatyam. I am a classical dancer, so I gave the same prompt. You see there are 2 variants doing the Bharatanatyam dance, right? Let's move a bit further. Now this is all in the tech industry. Let's go a bit further and talk about how general people are using it. There's a huge buzz by A.R. Rahman. He has used VR to create a sensory cinematic experience for user. So you just sit in this chair which has a rotatory motion, which has a sensory capabilities, and you will feel like you're actually there, living that, you're actually there in the movie. And you're actually smelling all of those. How cool that be, right? Right. So we talked about the products or the third-party engines that are there. Let's talk about what Thoughtworks is doing in that. So the project that you are seeing here is essentially integrated with GPT, where it is taking a prompt and it is giving an image or a texture. I'll not use a texture word, I'll take image more often. So once the image is generated, that you can give it on a model. Now what will this do? Essentially designing is a bigger thing. Now how will you design? You need to manufacture and see whether it suits or not. most of the designers that go to red carpet and all, until the product comes out, nobody knows how it will look, right? Now designing something on a model and having a prior experience whether to go for it or not is one such example. And this project like resembles to that, right? Now we talked about how AI is coming up, how the things are happening in XR, how it is reshaping in general. Now let's see what is the opportunity as a developer that we need to look into. When we talk about XR, I know most of you would have Snapchat or your Instagram. And I believe that you have used filters in that. Filters, right? We are fan of filters. Now, whenever you are using any filter or you are turning on the camera to process something or show something on top of you, essentially what happens is it is actually capturing your data. Now, when you are giving the data, concern comes in, which is data privacy and security, right? And when we are developing any projects on XR, what we need to be very attentive is on the data, right? That is one of the concern and also opportunity for the XR developers to explore and do something on the data, not just have more practices and safeguard the data. Let's talk about the other. Okay, since AI is coming in, we have to know when to use what, when to not use. If an application doesn't have any AI use case, just because AI is fascinating, you can't just overload with AI. You need to know when to move, when to stop. And design only products or projects which will apt for that situation. Just because the tech is cool, we can't just go for it, right? Next comes the design. Now, all the XR devices that you see is essentially by main players. They have their own user experience. Like, whatever experience that I find in one device will not be the same. So you have to be very cognizant about the safety measures that you design in the device. For example, if you are using the device for a longer time, there should be an indication that only 15% charge. Please recharge the device. This is a safety design. So the design should be very cautious, and as a developer, we should be very cognizant of the fact that these devices are new, and the people who are using are also like new to the devices, right? Okay. The other interesting topic that I want to leave this session and keep in your mind is that we have an earlier talk on the autonomous, right? So XR is becoming an extended reality for machines. Let me give one example. Okay, so we have these autonomous cars. How do autonomous cars work? There is a camera on top. You just let it go, let it drive, right? Now, I want to feed that car with the data which is coming from XR device. I want to feed that with a virtual data so that there are many scenarios for the car to operate and test properly, right? I'm talking about simulation here. Now, with that data, if I have the AI capability integrated, it could grow on top of it. It could learn. It could improvise better. So that's how I'm saying that XR is actually becoming as an extended reality for machines. Now, going forward, maybe in future, just like your earphones and all, XR could be another peripheral device. Yes. So with that, I think we are done with our talk, and we thank you for joining us and hearing us on XR. Thank you.
Yeah, and we are open.
We are open for questions.